arranging her body more comfortably on the sofa. "What do you think would become of my business were I to allow my client's privacy to be violated? I'll have you know my employees cater to some of the most highly placed members of Parliament, not to mention the wealthiest lords and ladies of first society. Your secret will be safe, Miss Briars." "Thank you," Amanda said, filled with equal parts of relief and terror, and a terrible suspicion that she was making the greatest mistake of her life. Chapter 1. Amanda knew exactly why the man on her doorstep was a prostitute. From the moment she had ushered him inside in the manner of someone harbouring an escaped convict, he had stared at her in dumbfounded silence. Obviously, he lacked the cranial equipment necessary to pursue a more intellectually challenging occupation. But of course, a man didn't need brains to do what he had been hired for. "Hurry," she whispered, tugging anxiously on his muscular arm. She slammed the door behind him. "Do you think that anyone saw you? I hadn't thought that you would simply appear at the front door. Aren't men of your profession trained to show some discretion?" "My profession," he repeated in a bemused manner. Now that he was safely concealed from public view, Amanda allowed herself to stare at him thoroughly. Despite his apparent dullness of wit, he was remarkably good-looking. Beautiful, really, if one could apply such a word to an obviously masculine creature. He was big-framed and lean, with shoulders that seemed to span the width of the front door. The layers of his gleaming black hair were thick and neatly cut, and his tanned face glowed from a precise shave. He had a long, straight nose and a voluptuary's mouth, and he had a pair of remarkable blue eyes that approximated no other shade she had ever seen. Except perhaps at the shop where the local chemist made batches of ink by boiling indigo plants and copper sulfate together for days until they formed a blue so dark and deep that it approached violet. And yet his eyes did not have the angelic quality one might usually associate with such a colour. They were shrewd, seasoned, as if he had gazed far too often at an unsavoury side of life that she herself had never seen. Amanda could easily understand why women would pay for his company. The thought of hiring this masculine, opulent-eyed creature to do one's bidding was extraordinary and tempting. Amanda was ashamed by her secret response to him, the hot and cold chills that chased through her body, the burning colour that rose to the crests of her cheeks. She had resigned herself to being a dignified spinster. She had even convinced herself that there was great freedom in her unmarried circumstance. However, her troublesome body didn't seem to understand that a woman should no longer be bothered by desire at her age. At a time when 21 was considered to be old, 30 was most definitely on the shelf. She was past her prime, no longer desirable. An ape leader was what people called such a woman. If only she could make herself accept her fate. Amanda forced herself to stare directly into his extraordinary blue eyes. "I intend to be frank, Mr. No, never mind. Don't tell me your name. We shan't be acquainted long enough for me to require it. You see, I've had a chance to reflect on a rather hastily made decision, and the fact is, well, I've changed my mind. Please do not receive this as a personal affront. It has nothing to do with you or your appearance, and I will certainly make that clear to your employer, Mrs. Bradshaw. You are a fine-looking man, in fact, and very punctual, and I have no doubt that you are very good at what you do. The simple truth is, I have made a mistake. We all make mistakes, and I am certainly no exception. Every great once in a while I do make a small error in judgment." "Wait!" He lifted his large hands in a defensive gesture, his intent gaze fastened on her flushed face. "Stop talking!" No one in her adult life had ever dared to tell her to stop talking. Surprised into silence, Amanda struggled to stem the cascade of words that threatened to flow from her lips. The stranger folded his arms across his muscular chest and leaned his back against the door to stare at her. The glow from the lamp in the tiny entrance hall of her fashionable London house cast a fringe of shadows from his long lashes onto the stark, elegant planes of his cheekbones. Amanda couldn't help thinking that Mrs. Bradshaw had excellent taste. The man she had sent was surprisingly well-groomed and prosperous-looking, dressed in fashionable but solidly traditional